Hey kids, TaviRider here. Today I present to you my cheap blaze grinder. A quick demo: you stand by this hatch where there's a bunch of almost dead blazes right there. Throw in a splash potion of harming, and they all die and release their XP orbs, and the next group of blazes drops in and starts taking damage from a piston, and more of these blazes queue up for their chance. So blazes are a difficult mob to work with. They have some weird behaviors, and they're just an all-around dangerous mob. So why make a blaze grinder instead of using a normal one? Well, there's something different about blazes that's very important. They give you twice as much XP as the other mobs. So a blaze will give you 10 XP, whereas a skeleton, zombie, spider, silverfish, those only give you 5. So, and their spawners spawn at the same rate as other mobs. So for the same amount of time spent waiting for mobs to spawn, you will get twice as much experience. The problem is you have to build a grinder that works well with them, and you can't use the typical drop style. And you can't even use water to push them around or anything like that. They're in the nether usually. So how did I build this and design this, and what makes it different? Well, first I need to show you something about blaze behavior. I'm going to set my game mode to survival and show you how a blaze behaves. Now I have him trapped in this area behind this fencing. I'm going to spawn a blaze up there. He's on a pillar that's 3 blocks tall, and he has a space that he can jump down off of that pillar. And right now, you notice he's not shooting his projectiles, he's not catching on fire or anything like that. And that's because they have to spot you before they start attacking. Until they spot you, they basically act like chickens. They will jump off of cliffs and they'll float down gently, no fall damage or anything like that. And they will not fly upwards. They can only jump up 1 block. So he's stuck down there at the bottom of that pillar. Now, if I climb this ladder and peek in and make eye contact with him through this hatch, then he's going to get angry. He's going to start shooting his projectiles, and you notice he's flown up to the top of that chamber now. So what you have to do to have an effective blaze grinder is manage them. Make sure that they never spot you, and then you can take advantage of the fact that they move around the way chickens do. So let me set my game mode back and show you the design of this cheap blaze grinder. So we have the spawner in the center here, and you can see this mark on the side. It shows sort of an altitude graph. The black wool shows the altitude of the spawner. Did I say grinder? Yeah, I meant spawner. And there's 2 blocks above and 2 blocks below to make room for the blazes to actually spawn. The room itself is 9 by 9 centered on the spawner. And the orange wool marks the further range within which the spawner will check for blazes. So you want to keep this entire area as clear of blazes as possible. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out one of my previous videos, Minecraft Science with Spawners, for an explanation of how that works, because it's important for making an efficient grinder. So all we have for collecting the blazes is simply this funnel. At every point they fall down 2 blocks and get into a narrower and narrower space. And eventually they're all corralled down into a 1 by 1 block waiting area. Now, because all of these jumps are 2 blocks high, the blazes can't jump back up again. So once they start falling, they don't get back up out of there again. Now, sometimes the blazes will spawn and they'll fall on this highest ledge. But even now, this won't limit the rate of the spawner, and they very rapidly just jump down in. You see that they will just decide to get deeper and deeper into the funnel until they make it into this mosh pit in the center and finally into the waiting area. By the way, there's one unusual thing about the sound effects right now. You notice that there's all this crackling sound from the sound of the flames of the blazes. That kind of overrides all other sound effects. So you don't hear the hatch sound or anything else that I'm going to be doing here. So once we have them all collected into this waiting area, we use just a couple of pistons and some redstone circuits to do the rest of the work. And this is what makes this a cheap blaze grinder. I've seen other blaze grinders like Ethos Design, he had a good early one, but it used armies of sticky pistons. And sticky pistons, I don't know about your hardcore survival world, but I didn't have a lot of slimes to kill to make lots of sticky pistons. I only had a few slime balls to make these, so I made this design that uses only 2 sticky pistons. Now this upper one is pushing a block of glass here, and that is to separate the undamaged blazes from the damaged blazes. And that's also why I use a glass block. When you push that in place, if there happens to be a blaze right in the middle there, he won't take any damage from the glass. Then this lower piston, it will push this solid block into the heads of the blazes, and they have nowhere to go in here. They can't move out of the way, so they start taking suffocation damage. So the rest of this mechanism is designed to time both of those pistons. So the upper one gets pushed in whenever there's a blaze in the bottom, and the lower one gets pushed into the blazes for just the right amount of time. And there's one other little detail. There is a pressure plate down in here. Now, even though they're actually floating slightly above the pressure plate, they are actually putting pressure on it, so that is triggering the pressure plate. So the redstone works by simply, we connect that pressure plate directly to the upper piston, so whenever there's a blaze on that pressure plate, it will close off the blazes above it. And then it also goes through these couple of circuits to control the lower piston. Now this is a monostable circuit, a rather simple one. What it does is it turns this steady signal coming from the pressure plate into a short pulse. And that comes out here, and that goes into this. This is a pulse lengthener. It turns that short pulse into a pulse that is just long enough to do the right amount of damage to the blazes. So I'll show you how all of this works. I will throw another splash potion of harming right at the right spot. You can it actually goes through walls, so I'm just going to throw it right here. And you can watch how these 2 pistons behave. The upper one, they both retract. The upper one pulls back and then pushes in the moment that a blaze lands on the pressure plate. And then the lower one pushes for several seconds. You can see the timer on the left running out, and then it retracts the lower piston. And now we're left with a bunch of blazes that are almost dead. And I'm still picking up the XP from earlier. So that's the basic design of it. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be sort of upset about this, all of these blazes up here that aren't getting killed. Now, this doesn't actually make it any less efficient except in the initial startup. You get typically about 15 blazes up here waiting to actually get down into the neck of the funnel. And this is not that big of a waste because they will eventually get ground and give you experience points. So you just have to wait a minute or two to prime the system, and then it will start working. Now, if you wanted to avoid having all of these blazes in here and you wanted to actively push them into the neck of the funnel, that's the kind of design that takes a whole bunch of pistons all the way lining the outside of this. And it's a very expensive and complicated mechanism to build. So as long as you don't mind waiting a couple of minutes to get it started, then you can start doing your grinding and getting things going, and a very efficient, fast way to get experience points. So let me show you my hardcore world where I've actually used this. And I want to point out a few design tips. That was really just the design world that I was using before. This is my actual hardcore world where I've set up the same kind of grinder. You can see the spawner up in the center there and a bunch of blazes. And this is the waiting area, and then down below, you can't see it from here, is where the blazes that are damaged will sit. You can't see the 2 pistons either, they're behind this nether brick. But that's an important point. I did not use nether rack, the normal block that you see everywhere in the nether, to build this because it's a very fragile block. I lined the entire thing with nether brick because it's very sturdy. And when I was building this, you can see I have this very large open space that I was actually building in. There's a lot of places where ghasts were spawning, and they were firing their projectiles at me, and that will blow up netherrack, and that could potentially free all of these very angry blazes. So I made the entire thing out of nether brick, which is not a difficult thing to do because you build it in a nether fortress anyway, so there's lots of nether brick around. The other thing is I almost always line all of my redstone circuits with wool to to sort of demonstrate what the circuits are doing, where they're connecting. I didn't do that here because wool is flammable, and one stray shot from a blaze would burn down all of my circuitry. So I kept it rather plain. But the circuits are actually all the same. I mean, here is your monostable circuit, and this whole big mess is actually the pulse lengthener. I had to sort of wander it around the room like this because I was working in a limited space inside one of the pillars of this nether fortress. But logically, it works exactly the same as the one that I showed in the other world. And down here is the actual collection point, so I can drop potions of harming here. Hurt myself a little bit that time. And then they start taking damage. I have a chest here for, I don't know what I'm going to do with all these blaze rods. Maybe they'll find another use for them. I store all of my splash potions of harming here. And if you don't have all the ingredients for these splash potions, it mostly just uses spider eyes and a little bit of other stuff. You can also use a bow and arrow. As it turns out, if you just grab a regular bow and arrow, each shot is going to kill one blaze. And this is actually an advantage because you don't use up any hunger shooting a bow and arrow. If I were to use my sword to start killing all these blazes, it would very rapidly wear out the sword, and it would use up all of my hunger. Now, I already have a skeleton grinder, so I have effectively unlimited bows and arrows, so this is an easy way for me to go. But this is manual work. You have to fire one shot for every single blaze, so I don't generally do that anymore because I've got plenty of potions now. Now, I also have up around here, I have a portal that I use to explore nearby. I have the rail line that leads to the portal that goes to my main base. I have equipment for building more things to be enchanted and things that I can use if I get a bad enchantment. I can basically wipe it out by repairing the item. And here's some of the wonderful things that I've been able to enchant with this. That was a great sword right there. I don't know how I got something that good. And you know, I can even waste enchantments on things like axes if I want. I also have my enchanting table right back here. These days it's very quick to enchant. It used to take some time to do it. But the spawner is right behind this wall, so it's a place where I can do this work, and the grinder is still spawning more blazes for more experience. So that's everything. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you find it very useful. If you have any questions, just post it as a comment on this video. I'm also going to post this to Reddit, so look for it there. And thanks for watching.